Yatta, you have some important information that we need to be
Aware of,
very aware
yes.
of, very in tune with. I need you to
Well,
introduce the people to what you're about to talk about.
sure. Well, I don't know how much people have been following. Like, there've been a lot of, cases of missing children, especially in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. But there was recently a case involving a girl named Jolie Musa, and she's a 16-year-old girl, and she's from Alexandria, which is, my neck of the woods, my hometown. And she turned up missing, and her family was begging police to get involved and to issue an Amber Alert. They're like, no, this is not like her. She hasn't come home. Apparently, she went to a party. She said she was going to a party in Norfolk, which is almost 200 miles away from where she stays. But she said it after the fact, after she had already left the house. That's when she told her twin sister she was going to Norfolk to a party. And her sister's like, isn't that 3 hours away? So she never came back. And so her family's looking for her. She's 16 years old. It's not like her. And the police basically would not, help them because they felt like she wasn't in danger. They classified her as a runaway. And needless to say, she went missing, I think, on the 12th. And on the 26th, they found her body in a park, buried under leaves, a mile away from her home. So everyone is upset because they feel like, Fairfax County Police Department dropped the ball on this, and they did. Why didn't you take it serious? Whether you want to issue an Amber Alert or not, it's not for you to decide whether or not she's in danger. I feel like if somebody knows their child, and my child says she goes to a party and she never comes home, that's an issue. And you could have, got this out here. A lot of times social media takes a handle on this. They'll get on social media like, hey, Twitter, do your thing. Hey, my cousin is missing, such and such is missing. And we end up being the ones who push and try to, regular bystanders are the ones who pump this information and get it so it has enough notoriety to where a law enforcement agency will take notice. And it's ridiculous because that little girl could have got, it's a possibility that her life could have been saved had they taken it seriously and not just said, well, she left on her own, so that's a runaway. Going to a party and not coming home is not you running away.
As my Uncle Charlotte would say, let me play white devil's advocate really quick. Just real quick. Would it be fair to say in every individual situation should be handled with care? I do agree with that. But if they get those type of calls on a regular basis, and though the description of the story from her parents is very common, that they've heard it so many times before, and it ended up where the child just didn't want to come home. They wanted to spend a night over a guy's house or a girl's house or their friend's house or whatever so they can do whatever they wanted to do, which is very common. Is it fair to say that maybe based on their professional opinion that's probably why they decided to take that risk?
I feel like if that had been white Becky, you know what I'm saying, from Mount Vernon, they would have brought the dogs out, the helicopters, and they would have looked for that girl. I feel like they don't care about black people. They don't care about black youth enough to look for us. They assume things like, oh, she ran away. If I'm telling you that this is behavior that is uncharacteristic of my child, you need to take it serious. If the first 24 hours you want to feel like, oh, she's a runaway or whatever, at what juncture is the cutoff point to where you say, okay, well, she's been gone for entirely too long. Let's go ahead and look for this kid. Maybe you would have found her alive. Like, that's upsetting to me, and it kind of reminds me of the situation with Kanika Jenkins, and not to say that I can say definitively that it was foul play in her scenario, but if someone had helped that girl's mother when she came up there and took it serious, you can do something to help someone and it doesn't hurt you, why not do it? You would have found that girl before she froze to death in the freezer. Point blank, period. So for me, they dropped the ball. And a friend of mine is her family actually asked, why they wouldn't issue an Amber Alert. And that was a big thing on Twitter, was why didn't anybody issue an Amber Alert? So apparently, in talking to one of my friends who was Metropolitan Police Department, and in my own research, found out there are a lot, I can understand why they didn't issue an Amber Alert. Apparently there's a lot more to it than I was ever aware of, because there are certain criteria. It has to meet like 5 or 6 criteria in order to even qualify as an Amber Alert. For one, it has to be a confirmed abduction. They have to confirm that your child was abducted. You can't just say, oh, I ain't seen her, it's an Amber Alert. It doesn't work that way.
How do they confirm that?
Well, you got somebody seen your child get snatched. Something like that. It has to be something like confirmed. They have to be an imminent risk of bodily danger, or bodily harm, or death. Like, she went, don't get me wrong, because her not coming back home, that's a big deal. But like you said, she could have been in a friend's house for a couple of days. So when it comes to issuing an actual Amber Alert, but that doesn't stop you from publicizing this and making it known so that people can look for her.
Probably one of those 5 qualifications probably is Caucasian.
I was like, yeah, that's the one that's hidden. That's the one that's hidden.
Yeah,
but you also have to have sufficient enough descriptive information in order for them to do that. Like, you got to be able to tell me what she looked like, what she had on, stuff like that. Like, a lot of things that people don't, know. So I can understand it didn't necessarily fit the criteria of issuing an Amber Alert, because once you do that, it goes into like a national database, and all these other agencies get involved with searching for her. Right. So I can understand you not necessarily wanting to launch the situation without knowing for sure that this is what that is. So it didn't have to go to that level, but they should have helped that family.
Because if you have enough information or wrong information, you can slow down the look for it, with misinformation.
Exactly, absolutely. And that just brings me to another situation, because I got into a whole long conversation with my friend who works for Metropolitan Police in D.C. And unfortunately, can't really interview him, but I did get a lot of information from him that, things that we didn't know about or weren't aware of, as far as like the situation with human trafficking versus runaways. Despite what everyone wants to believe, in D.C. anyway, the vast majority, 99% of these cases are runaways.
And if if the public didn't know, a couple months ago or about a year or so ago, what was that? Like maybe 9 months to a year, there was a big situation in DC where it was a lot of they were kind of chalking it up to human trafficking, but people didn't really know. But it was a lot of missing girls.
Yep, a lot of missing girls, a lot of missing Black folks in general, and people assumed that it was a trafficking situation, not knowing that what it is a regulation within the department that every time someone goes missing, it gets publicized. The blotters going out, it's getting on social media, So
that's the other side of it, though. That's the flip side of the girl that you mentioned before.
Right. And see, unfortunately for her, because she lived in Virginia just dropped the ball on that. Fairfax County dropped the ball. It would have never went down like that in D.C. Yeah. Because every single person, you're 30 minutes missing. They're putting something up, and they take every case seriously. Now, granted, they might not have the helicopters out and the dogs out just yet, but they're publicizing every single case. So what it looks like is when you start doing that, it looks like this sudden influx of missing people. When the reality is, it's been like that the entire time. They just weren't getting publicized. So they're runaways. 99% of them, he told me, are runaways. They come home within a few days. But the problem is, parents, you don't know your kids. Like, you have to know your children. What does it look like if your kid run away?
When do they quit? When after they issue these, when they do come home, do they tell us what happened? I never hear that. Oh, you don't get a whole lot of follow. Which is another thing. You don't get a whole lot of follow up with that as far as where they were. But that's really kind of at the discretion of the parties involved. Gotcha. But these kids be at their homie house, little Tyrone house up the street for 4 days, and the parents are like they're missing, and people are saying they got traffic. When the reality is, a lot of these DC breeds an environment of independence with their kids. These kids, 2nd, 3rd grade, taking the metro to school. You know what I'm saying? So they had that in their. It's in the culture. But if you don't know your kids, you don't know who your kids' friends are. You don't know where your kids hang out at. You don't have no access to your kids' social media. You don't even know their social media handles. You can't tell the police anything. You can say, my kid is missing. They come interview you like, okay, so what's some of their friends' names? I don't know who they hang out with. Right. Well, where they hang out at? I don't know. What's their social media? I don't really be on top of that.
That's very common.
That's how you don't realize your kid then ran away, because he out kicking up the street at a homie house, and if you knew your kids, then they would know to search there, but you don't give them anywhere to start at. Right. So he said that's the case in so many scenarios in the city. Maryland too. I hate to be the one to burst the bubble, because it's not to say that human trafficking doesn't exist. Yeah. But with these cases with missing kids in our area, a lot of times it's not that, and I was shocked.
Do you think it's any correlation with that? This may be a reach, but like fathers not being there and moms got to do so much.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Not
Absolutely.
being out. It's kind of, you working a full-time and a part-time job. It's kind of hard to be homework or just know everything that's going on, especially with boys. I mean,
or if you have multiple kids.
You get stretched too thin because you can't be everything to everyone all the time and still provide. So I think it is a situation with economic situation. Whereas if I got to work, 2 jobs because I got 4 kids to feed, and I, there's no father in the house to help take off some of that weight. A lot of things can slip through the cracks. It's unfortunate, but when your kids get to a certain age, you have to make that time to know things. You got to build that rapport with your kids. You got to at least know who they're hanging with. Somebody.
You gotta know that. That's
at least 2 or 3 friends. If you can't name one of your kids' friends, that speak volumes, because not one.
And you should have their numbers. If your kids are hanging with the other groups of kids
and
a lot, you should have their
parents' number. My mom, when I was young, my mom wouldn't let me go anywhere. Let me speak to the parent. Do they have any older brothers?
Right.
older sisters.
If you haven't met the parent, at least
like
you need to talk to them. If nothing else, you and that child parent should have some sort of rapport, have each other's contact information, because you just never know. But when you don't have any information, they don't know where to start.
Yes.
And it's like shooting in the dark, trying to find this kid. And then they just come home on their own. It be a few days. Come on, you out here. I mean, how long you about to survive for real? You know what I'm saying? The adolescents out here. You're not really about to do that. But it just goes to show, because if you could be at one of your friends' house and their parents don't know to call your parents to let them know the truth, that speaks volumes too. So it's just in the culture, and it's sad, but it's not nearly as much trafficking as like we like to think, because from what I was told, the only unsolved missing persons case we have in the city right now that could have been trafficking is Relisha Rudd.
Mm-hmm. And that's the little 8-year-old girl with the braids. They found her, right?
Still haven't found her to this day. I mean, I would assume at this point, and I hate to say it, to this day, I would hope that it's not. But I mean, at this juncture, she's got to be presumed dead at this point for this length of time and her age. Exactly. So at this point, they're probably looking for a body. But it's just unfortunate to see a situation like Jolie Musa, where the law enforcement just completely dropped the ball on this. And you didn't help these people, and you didn't take it serious when you should have.
And that's crazy, because that's Virginia, because they're so strict in every other aspect of the law.
They racist as shit too.
That just feeds into my narrative that I feel like if that would have been, Becky Anderson, you know what I'm saying? They would have been on it like nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like they would have looked for that girl. They would have got the resources out to find that girl. Yeah. But he said it also varies depending on who handles missing persons cases. And a lot of times with law enforcement, different jurisdictions, they don't even handle their missing persons case. It goes to like one of these outside, like, missing persons, like coalition sort of situations that actually lead the search on these. But in DC, they do it in-house.
Do you think the police take more focus with families that are better off financially than like?
Absolutely.
Okay. They watch their neighborhoods better. They are, and it's not because that's what the police individual instinct is to do. No, it's what they're told to do. In this neighborhood that's affluent, we can't. You don't let no shit go pop off over here.
I was at a house party in Silver Spring, like deep Silver Spring, like past. I don't even know it.
American White Oak.
And that's Maryland. It's affluent Maryland.
Yeah, but like some stuff popped off. Somebody called the police. No lie. 3 minutes. I was like, wow. They must have been like around the corner. Or they must have lived 3 houses down and was about to start working. Like,
it's priority.
That's crazy, because like in the
if they come in, it's either they shut it down off bucks or
churches. Even churches, they got the most security. They got the most police, because they're going to look after the people who paying the most taxes. So if you're affluent, you're paying more taxes. If you're a church, you're not paying taxes, but you got that bread to pay the police. They pay a lot of people in the community. They take care of a lot of people in the community.
Absolutely.
Because First Baptist be having a church. They got literally 90 police officers out there.
Those police officers out that
because they get paid for that. That's cash money. You know what I'm saying? So they look out for the money. And like even when it becomes a riot or something, even in Baltimore, they protected, the police were out there to protect the white businesses, the big companies. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Not the people, no. Yeah. So that's what it's about. I'm
gonna have to take my business somewhere else.
Okay.
No, that's what they probably say. Oh yeah, no.
I just genuinely feel like as a whole, they just don't have a lot of empathy for Black people in these situations, and they don't put a whole lot of effort into finding us because it's just automatically assumed that somehow we're in the wrong. Like, that kid probably ran away, and having that mentality cost that girl her life potentially. Now I don't know, because she could have been killed that same night. Right. You know, from what I read, it was on a source that I couldn't necessarily validate that spoke about her decomposition of her body. I don't know how true that was, so I don't get too much into that. Exactly, but that's for her to be found in a park a mile away from her home. She ain't go to no damn Norfolk. She ain't going to Norfolk. But her sister said something about she was doing her hair, and then she stopped for a second, and then she got like a text or a message or something, and she responded, and she's kind of just like, I gotta go. And she got her stuff together, and she went out, and she left out the house. And then she texted her like, yeah, I'm going to this party in Norfolk. So it's probably some grown-ass man.
Some sick man. It'd be men, Joe. Like, I'm going to keep it a buck. Like,
absolutely.
It's no woman that's texting you, like, trying to kill you or abduct you. Like,
you never know.
It's men.
I mean, it could be, but 10 times out of 9, in a situation like that, it's probably some pedo. You know, and that's why you have to stay on top of what's going on with your kids. That's got to be a priority. And like I understand that it can get stressful when you're parenting and you got multiple kids and you got all these responsibilities. Yeah. But it's when your kids get to a certain age, that's something you got to have that password. If you on a phone that I pay for, on my Wi-Fi, my data plan, that social media, I need them passwords. I need to know, because if something goes wrong, I think they said they found a girl, a 16-year-old girl who's missing in D.C., found her in New York. You know how they found her? Because her mom was on it. And she checked in on Facebook at a spot in New York. And that's how they found her. But she went to New York because some white girl she met in Chinatown told her how to run away. This is how you do it. This is how you ride the train for free. This is where you can go in New York, where you can get assistance, stuff like that. And she did it.
I'm not a woman, and I don't have a daughter, but I know it's probably like hard, like to have that balance, because you want to be like a friend, a parent. You don't want to be like too hard on your daughter, but you know what I'm saying. You don't want to be too easy on her. I don't
want to be a friend at all, to be honest. I want us to have a rapport. But I don't want to be your friend. I want you to understand that I'm your mother. I want you to understand that what I'm telling you is for your benefit. But I also do want us to have a rapport to where you feel comfortable talking to me. And that starts young. You have to build that confidence young, so that they know you're the person I go to. And I have rules even with my son. So whereas if you come to me and you tell me something, I can't get mad. Not at you. If I got to go in the bathroom or go out in my car and scream my head off and then come in the house and deal with you, I cannot get upset for you coming to me and telling me the truth. And that is how you breed an environment of them wanting to be forthcoming with you. Because if they come and tell you, hey, Mom, look, I did something. I smoked some weed. And you chew them out, they're never going to want to talk to you again.
But that's why I say, and I just a tad bit different with my boys. I want to be, 80% father, but I do want to be like 20% friend, because I feel like they will be more forthcoming with information, opposed if I'm just like.
Well, I think maybe I'm just not. Maybe it's probably just like a semantics thing as far as me just not calling it a friend. But
maybe the word, but
I really just want to have that rapport. I don't necessarily want to be your BFF, per se, but I want to have that comfort zone with my kids, because not having that can leave you out of the loop for a lot of stuff. And it's unfortunate that a kid can run away and be gone for a few days and you really can't, you have nothing to go on. That's right.
Kids can be childish and immature, and you may punish them and they get mad and want to leave and stuff like that. But I don't know, something like, I'm not there yet because my daughter's still really young, but it's not too long ago since I was a teenager, of course. So I just know that, like you said, the friend thing, not necessarily a good idea. Go ahead.
You're fired.
Yeah, the friend thing is not the way to go, because they'll treat you like how white kids treat their parents.
Shut up, Sabrae. I'm going outside.
No, we're not playing that shit.
You're right, exactly. Like, I don't want no.
But yes, to be able to not judge them. When they come to you and tell you something is important.
And it's not going to be the easiest thing to do, because, they might tell you something that make you want to wring their neck, but you got to respect that they being honest with you, and you can't come at them. That's when you just have that real talk, and you just be real candid about certain things beyond a certain age.
I guess it depends on what. I can still probably be mad. It depends on what it is.
Yeah. But you can't show them that you're mad. You can show them that, look, this is not what it is. Right. You can show them that that's kind of disappointing to me. I'd rather you not do that, and then explain why. But you can't spaz at them for coming to you with the truth. That's crazy.
Is that just with your kids, or is that with anybody?
I mean, nah. Don't do that. Why did I know he was going to go there? You're such a man. No. My thing is, I respect your honesty. We're still breaking up. Like, no. Like,
wow. My thing so you will break up with your kid,
basically. See, there's no deal breaker. But there's no deal breakers with being my child. I don't get to say, you know what, I'm not your mother anymore.
You can't divorce your child. You know that, right?
I'm not divorcing.
You can give up your parental rights.
That's cute and everything, but no. But I can definitely dump a nigga who not nothing and keep it moving. Even if you told me the truth, you shouldn't have did it.
If you date Yatta, do not tell the truth.
I hold my kids to a higher standard than I hold my man. Right. Because you're raised by me. So you gotta do right.
You're supposed to treat your spouse, your spouse comes first before your kids.
You know what's really cute about that? I'm single. So, like I said,
I think there is nuances to that though, because I feel like if your spouse is not your child, it's tricky. If your spouse is not your children's father,
well, what is the whole?
No, but
who makes the plate? Who you feed first? Who you make your man plate or your kid plate? I'm like, I solved this issue real quick. Food's ready. I make my plate. I make my plate. No, you niggas can fend for yourselves.
You're supposed to make the plate, but no, seriously,
the kids. I slaved over a hot stove Hey.
Okay, then he do the dishes, but you can make the plates.
Nah, Dad, this how you solve that problem, though. I make my plate first, and then I sit down like...
No, the kids should be...
the food ready.
The kids should be fed first to me. The man should just get the bigger portion.
I don't want kids digging in my food, first of all.
No, I mean, little baby, of course you do what's necessary, you know.
I make all the plates at the same time.
I think the man in the house should get his food first. You should just show that gesture.
I make everybody plate at the same time. I got 4 plates on the counter. I'm like,
now but there are certain situations like if you got a little kid and they're like crying and you know how they act when they fucking hungry or tired or something like that. You got to get that out the way. It's certain things, but if everybody's teenagers or the kids are teens or whatever, the man in the house gets taken care of. And then
I make everybody plate at the same time.